So in this video, we're going to run through the patient's clinical records. Now, there is a lot going on this screen. It's designed to allow you to have all of your clinical information available in one place. So you're not having to jump between different screens to be able to see previous entries and so forth. So as a result, it can take a little bit of getting used to as to what's located where, but hopefully once you've become familiar with the layout of the page, then it will be much easier to work with. Now at the top we have some basic information about the page. Next down we have a section which is sort of listing warnings and cautions and diagnoses. Lower down we have the case summary and contextual lifestyle information about the patient. Down here we get into the area where you're really going ahead and entering most of the clinical records, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And then last but not least, you have all of the previous clinical entries, clinical reports, and any files that have been uploaded to the patient's record. So heading back up the top here, we can see we've got the patient's name first of all, and then their date of birth, and then the patient's age. Then you've got the next appointment, which is listed here. If they don't have another appointment booked, then it will say none booked. And you've also got a listing of the number of future appointments. So if you like to block book a section of visits in advance, you can keep track of where the patient is at. And if you want to know sort of where the patient is at in terms of account balances and so forth, that information is stored here as well. Then we've got the visits in course section. So if you, for example, did 6 visits before you actually did a re-exam with the patient, you would enter 6 visits into this field here. And then what will happen is every time you save a consultation, it will count this number down so that when you visit the page, you can quite quickly see how many visits the patient has left. And you can see here, the patient has 1 visit left in the course of care, and it has this yellow box around it. If there's no visits left, then it will be highlighted in red so that you'll know that you need to book a re-exam or whatever else you might need to do with the patient. Then we've got the warnings and cautions here. So this is for things like, if there's any sort of major contraindications to care or certain things that you need to be aware of. And I'll show you how to edit those or enter them in a second. Similarly, you have a list of any current diagnoses for the patient, and it tells you who entered the diagnosis, what the diagnosis is, and what the date of entry of those diagnoses were as well. Then as we move down, we've got what we refer to as the case summary information and the contextual lifestyle information. So case summary is particularly useful if you've got like multiple practitioners in a clinic, and rather than having to read through all of the records, you would just like to be able to do a quick summary of what is going on with the patient. And so you would put that information here. Now this information automatically saves, so when you've finished entering it, it will just automatically save. So for example, if I put some extra text in here, what will happen is once I go out of this field, it will then just automatically update. And as you can see here, it's put some green save text up there to let me know. And same thing here on the contextual lifestyle information. This one is about the information that isn't really clinical, but it's just stuff that you like to know about the patient, like they're going on holiday in a couple of months, or, the dog's name is Fred, or husband's name is Bill, or whatever. Just stuff that you like to know as a practitioner. Now you can set these to automatically show. Now what you can do is you can adjust quite a number of settings regarding the clinical records via the profile screen. And so if you were to open the profile screen, down the bottom of the profile screen, there's this bit here that allows you to show the case summary information, for example, on page load, or to hide the case summary information on page load, etc. And you can customize that according to desktop or mobile. And so basically you can customize that according to what you want to see. Now, when we've got this information, either open or not, depending upon what you want to have. Below that, we have the main entry area for your clinical records. Now, iconpractice comes with 4 default templates. The first is a standard consultation, which has like a normal SOAP note type of layout, a subjective, objective, treatment and plan. Then there is the initial consultation form, which has a couple of extra fields. So you would do history, examination, diagnosis, prognosis, scheduling, and treatment. Then we've got a re-examination form, which has a sort of a SOAP note layout as well. And then you have an open entry, which is just like an open box. And you can adjust the size of all these just by dragging this bit in the corner of that there. Then in addition, we also have what is known as an addendum. So if you just had something extra that you wanted to add, say in addition to what you had entered previously, without editing the note or whatever, you can just use this addendum option here. Then we've got a report section, and a report section will save down here under the reports to the side. So this would be, for example, if you wanted to write up a report on a lumbar x-ray or something, then you would title this, lumbopelvic sequence or series, maybe put the date in or something if it differs from the actual date that you're entering it. And then you're going to enter your report text here, and then you just click save, and then it will save lower down the bottom there. Then we've got your diagnoses and your warnings and your cautions. And basically what will happen is you'll then see a list of all the existing diagnoses in the system. And so we can see here that we've got a number that have been entered, and these are my various test diagnoses, but they're inactive at the minute. So I can just click that and make it reactive. So if you have a patient that has a diagnosis that is now they've had it in the past, but it's no longer active for the patient, but now they've come back in and hey presto, the diagnosis is now current again. You can just reactivate it, or you can deactivate it from this section here. Similarly with the warnings and cautions, if you want to enter a new diagnosis distinct from the initial consultation section, you can just type the diagnosis in here and click save, and then it will show up in the diagnosis section. And like we said, you've got your warnings and you've got your cautions as well, and you can enter those or deactivate them, reactivate them, etc. using this section. Now, heading back to the clinical records, I'll just show you how we might go ahead and enter, an open entry form. You can choose, well, perhaps before we get to that, when you actually save your consultations, they will save down here, and they will have different colors. So your standard consultations and your open entries will save with this green color. Your re-exams and your initial consultations will save with this yellow color. Now you can alter that by clicking this color thing here and selecting a different color, such that when I now save this open entry, it will save with this orangey sort of background color instead, pretty much like what we've got here with this initial consultation. So this is particularly useful if you have different visit types, like say you might do a functional movement screen, a visit or something like that, and you wanted to be able to quickly scan back and see which were the functional movement screens, and then you could quickly just refer to them without having to do search functions and things like that. If I want to copy the last entry that was made, I can click this copy last. I won't do that, but if you need to do that, you certainly can. And then, for example, you would just enter whatever you wanted to enter, and then you would click save, or you can click save and arrived or save and diary. Now, if you just click save, it will save the entry and you will stay on this page. If you click save and arrived, it will take you back to the arrived list that is visible for practitioners. Or if you click save and diary, it will take you back to the diary once you've finished, and then you can go to the next visit, etc. from there. And you can also go from the arrived screen instead to go to the next visit as well. So it just depends on which type of system you're using in your practice. Now, to enter information, you can obviously just type within this box here, or we have what we refer to as macros on the side here. And so the system comes with a lot of macros built into it as standard. You just put the cursor in the field where you want the macro, and then you would click the button. And as you can see, it's now just gone and inserted all of my history headings in effect. So I can now take a history quite quickly and efficiently, and then just enter information accordingly. And then there's a whole stack of different other macros that you can access from the system. So if I wanted particular upper limb related text, etc., I can then just go in and out of those. Now, if I decided, for example, that I didn't want the pain ones visible, for example, and I wasn't really interested in seeing the standard visit ones as standard, but I did want to see the upper limb ones as standard, I can adjust these so that they're showing accordingly, and then I can click on these three dots here and click Save Display Options. And now what will happen is when I reload this page, it will now have it such that these options are available rather than the default options. So you can customize these to display accordingly. What you can also see at the top here is that you can see different different macros that each user can have. So my particular macros that I have here, when I click on them, they will enter, whatever is in the particular macro button there. Now these are editable through the settings section, but if you just go down to the bottom here and click Edit User Macros, it will now open that section in another tab, and I can very quickly edit those macros. I can create new macros, etc. through this macro section. And I won't go too much into that. There's going to be a section on how to do that in the settings help documents, but that just gives you a bit of an idea. Now for our macros, we have ones related to history taking. We've got some for examination, some that are management related. You have treatment related ones. You have a spine one. So if you want to quickly enter your listings and any adjustments that you've done, you can do that. And then last but not least, there's a drawing one as well. So if you say select a background image here, it will just take a second to load, and then I can go ahead and I can say do a posture assessment on this patient, just quickly sort of enter in a posture related drawing, just kind of like so. And then when I finish doing that, I can then just click save, and what will happen is it will now be appended to the particular entry that I'm making at the time. And when I go ahead and click save, it will allow me to do that. If I decide, look, I've made an error, I don't want to actually save that image, I can just click this little cross here and it will remove it from the entry, etc. So that's how we will do that. And then when we click save, now that record will be saved down here. As you can see, it's saved in this sort of reddy color. And if I open it, you can see that it's got the text that I entered, and then it's got the image. If I want to look at that image in greater detail, I just click the image and you can see it will pop up in a light box like so. Or if I want to remove that image at a later stage, I can click the edit button here and it will prompt me, and it will log if the fact that that image has been deleted, just so that we've got a record. For clinical record auditing purposes, any edits that take place, etc., are all edited. If I want to delete this entry, I can just click delete entry. Again, that is saved within the clinical records from an audit point of view. So if ever it is needed for medico-legal reasons, you've got an audit trail as to who did what when. Similarly, you can edit an entry as well. So you just click this edit entry button. It then retrieves the details, and then you're going to basically be able to edit this entry here. So if I wanted to enter some extra text there, I can click update. It saves it. You can see it's now got that there. If I find that I want to go back and restore a previous entry, you can see here that the previous entries have been saved here, and I can just click restore and it will restore it back to what it was originally. And if I've done multiple entries here, I have the option to restore multiple different entries. If I do click restore, what will happen is it will now have saved the edit that I made, such that you can see here now that it's got the extra test text that I entered there, so I could restore that as well. So there's a number of options there. And that is the case for all of the previous entries. If I want to see all of the entries, I can just click this show hide all, and so it will expand all of the entries. Similarly with the reports here as well, I can either open up a single report or I can click show hide all, and it will then show all of the respective entries there as well. The last thing I perhaps want to highlight is that any form entries that are saved, so if you send a form to the patient, it will save in the clinical records here, and I'm just scrolling through, there's all my test ones, but it will basically save as a yellow form entry, and it will say form entry here, and then I can just go in and I can look at whatever it was that the patient submitted. Last but not least, with the clinical entries, you have uploaded files that are visible here for the patient. Now, if I want to delete these, I can certainly do that, and again, it will log it. Otherwise, if I want to look at the file, say it's an X-ray file, for example, you can see here, obviously, these are just random images. These are Dr. Graham massages, which are very good massages. I would recommend them if you ever need a massager. Talk to Dr. Graham, he's very helpful chap. But anyway, the image can be viewed just by clicking the view button here, and you can see that it will open in a new tab. So if you would say had the various X-ray series here and you wanted to look at the lateral cervical, you would just look at find the lateral cervical. You can click the view button, or you can also just double click on the image there and it will open in a new tab as well. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a good overview of what happens with the clinical record screen, how it all works together. If you have any questions, as always, you're not sure about any features, feel free to submit a support request. I would be happy to get back to you and explain how everything works.